Have you ever been in a room where someone you loved made you invisible? I have. My husband did it at his company Gala, introduced me as the help, made me stand there while he networked over my head, let his mistress, yes, his mistress treat me like I was hired staff. And I let him. Not because I was weak, but because I was strategic. See, he had no idea that I'd already filed for divorce. No idea that I'd traced every dollar he'd stolen from our account. No idea that the house manager he was so casually dismissing was about to be announced as the executive running his entire division. This is the story of how I went from invisible to unstoppable in one night. This is the story of perfect revenge. This is proof that sometimes the best thing you can do is let them underestimate you right up until the moment you destroy them. If you need this energy in your life, hit that subscribe button right now. Comment. Queen, if you're ready to see this man's face when reality hits. 7 weeks earlier, I had returned home from what was supposed to be a 5-day business trip to Lagos. My father had fallen ill. Nothing serious, just enough to worry me. So I'd cut the trip short and caught the earliest flight back to Seoul. It was 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. Yeho should have been at work, but his car was in the driveway. I remember standing there with my suitcase, staring at that black Mercedes, feeling my stomach turn inside out. There's a specific kind of knowing that happens in your gut before your brain catches up. An animal instinct that screams, run. Something is wrong. Protect yourself. I didn't run. I wish I had. The apartment was quiet when I opened the door. Too quiet. I left my suitcase by the entrance and walked through our home like a stranger, noticing things I'd trained myself not to see. The second wine glass in the sink, still stained with lipstick. A woman's hair tie on the coffee table. Not mine, because I always wore black ones. And this was red. Red. I found the hotel receipts in his jacket pocket. 4 different hotels over the past 2 months. The Schiller, the Park Hyatt, boutique places in Gangnam I couldn't pronounce. And then I found his phone. He'd left it charging in the bedroom, probably in his rush to shower away evidence. I knew his passcode, his mother's birthday. She'd always said I wasn't good enough for her precious son, the boy who could do no wrong. I wondered what she'd think of him now. The messages loaded, and my world tilted. Park Min-ha. Last night was perfect. I can't wait until you finally leave her. Yeho. Soon, baby. I promise. Just need to figure out the finances. Park Min-ha. You said that last month. Yeho. She doesn't suspect anything. She's always working anyway. It's like she's already gone. I sat on the edge of our bed, where I'd slept beside him for 5 years, and felt something inside me crack and then immediately harden into diamond. I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, I opened my banking app with shaking fingers. Our joint savings account. The one we'd been building for years. The one that had 680 million won in it 3 months ago. 430 million won. I clicked through the transaction history. Transfers. Dozens of them. Small enough not to trigger alerts. Large enough to add up to 250 million won. All going to an account under the name Park Min-ha. That's when I cried. Not because my husband was cheating, though that knife twisted deep enough, but because he'd stolen from me. Because he thought I was stupid enough not to notice. Because he'd already checked out of our marriage and was financing his exit with my money. I heard the shower turn off, heard him humming. Actually humming. Like this was just another Tuesday, like he hadn't just destroyed everything we'd built. I wiped my face, took screenshots of everything, and put his phone back exactly where I'd found it. Then I went downstairs, pulled out my suitcase, and left. He found me in the kitchen 2 hours later. I'd composed myself by then, put on the mask I'd been wearing for years, the one that made me smaller, quieter, less threatening to his fragile ego. You're back early. He kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong, like he hadn't just showered off another woman's perfume. How's your dad? Better, I said. The word tasted like ash. False alarm. Good, good. Hey, I'm thinking we order in tonight. I'm exhausted. Exhausted. From what? From lying? From stealing? From planning his escape? Sure, I said. Whatever you want. He smiled, relieved that I wasn't asking questions, wasn't demanding attention, wasn't being difficult. And I smiled back. Because that's what I'd always done, made myself small so he could feel big. Hidden my promotions because they made him insecure. Downplayed my achievements because his mother said successful women made poor wives. I'd had 3 job offers in the past year, all of them better than his position. I'd turned them all down because he'd asked me to, because he said we needed stability, because he said my career was moving too fast and it was putting pressure on our marriage. Our marriage, the one he was already planning to leave. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat in our home office and made a list. 1. Find the best divorce attorney in Seoul. 2. Document everything. 3. Protect my assets. 4. Get out with my dignity intact. And then I added a 5th item, one that made my hands shake as I wrote it. 5. Make him regret ever thinking I was weak. I called my father the next morning. He'd always been able to read me, even across continents. Naledi, he said, using the Korean diminutive he'd learned for me. What's wrong? I told him everything, every ugly detail. And when I finished, there was a long silence on the other end. Do you remember what I taught you when you were 7? He finally asked. Which lesson, Papa? The one about jackals. I closed my eyes, remembering. Never let them see you're wounded. Plan in silence, move in darkness, strike in daylight. Exactly. Now? What do you need from me? Nothing. I need to do this myself. Wrong answer. You need everything, and you'll accept my help, because that's what family does. Now I have some friends in Seoul, good friends. Let me make some calls. 48 hours later, I was sitting in the office of attorney Kim Min-jae, one of the most ruthless divorce lawyers in South Korea. She was 60, elegant, and had a reputation for leaving unfaithful husbands with nothing but their pride, and even that was usually in tatters. You have a prenuptial agreement? She asked, reviewing the documents I'd brought. Yes. What I brought into the marriage stays mine, including my inheritance and separate investments. Smart. And the 250 million won he transferred? I want it back, with interest. She smiled. Actually smiled. I like you. Most women come in here crying, asking if they can keep the house. You're asking for blood. I'm asking for what's mine. Even better. Now, here's what we're going to do. Over the next 6 weeks, Attorney Kim and I built a case that was airtight and devastating. We traced every transfer, documented every hotel visit, found text messages he thought he'd deleted. We also discovered something interesting. Park Min-ha, his mistress, was the HR director at his company, Meridian Global Finance, and she'd been approving fraudulent expense reports for Yeho, essentially laundering company money through fake client dinners and business trips. This isn't just adultery, Attorney Kim said. This is corporate fraud. Can we use it? Oh, we're absolutely using it. But I needed one more thing. One final piece to make everything perfect. I needed a way out that was bigger than just divorce. I needed a future that would show Yeho exactly what he'd lost. That's when the email arrived. Subject: Confidential offer. Meridian Global Finance. Dear Ms. Okoro, we've been following your career with great interest. Your work in international finance and cross-cultural negotiations is precisely what we need for our expansion into the African market. We'd like to offer you the position of Chief Operations Officer for our Asia-Pacific division based in Seoul. The role comes with full autonomy, a significant compensation package, and the opportunity to build something extraordinary. We understand this is sudden, but we're hoping to make an announcement at our annual gala in 6 weeks. Would you be available for a confidential discussion? Best regards, Robert Whitmore, CEO, Meridian Global Finance. I read it 3 times. Meridian Global Finance, Yeho's company. The company where he'd been climbing the corporate ladder, desperate for recognition, willing to do anything, including commit fraud, to get ahead. And they wanted me to be his boss. The universe, I decided, had a beautiful sense of irony. If you're loving this story so far, drop a comment and let me know. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. I met with Robert Whitmore the following week at a private club in Gangnam. He was British, silver-haired, and had the kind of sharp intelligence that missed nothing. "Your father spoke very highly of you," he said, and I understood immediately. Papa had made those calls he'd mentioned, had pulled strings I didn't even know existed. "I'm interested," I said carefully, but I have some conditions. "Name them." "The announcement happens at the gala, not before. No one in the company knows until that night." His eyebrows rose. "That's, unusual. I have my reasons." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Personal reasons, I assume. Let's just say I'm handling some internal matters. Your husband works for us." It wasn't a question. "He does. And this is about him. This is about me finally choosing myself." Robert Whitmore smiled then, a real smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Ms. Okoro, I think you're going to be absolutely perfect for this role. Consider it yours. We'll make the announcement at the gala as you requested." We shook hands, and I felt the first real flutter of excitement I'd experienced in months. Everything was falling into place. The next few weeks were a carefully choreographed dance. During the day, I played the role of dutiful wife. I made breakfast. I asked about Yiho's work. I smiled when he came home late, smelling like perfume that wasn't mine. At night, after he fell asleep, I became someone else entirely. I met with attorney Kim twice a week. We filed the divorce papers quietly, requesting an expedited hearing. In South Korea, if both parties agree and there's clear evidence of infidelity, the process can move quickly. Of course, Yiho had no idea he was agreeing to anything. The papers would be served after the decree was finalized. I also started working remotely with Meridian's Seoul office, preparing for my new role. That's when I really got to know Choi Se-hoon. Our first video call was supposed to be about quarterly projections for the Asia-Pacific market. Instead, it became something else entirely. "Ms. Okoro," he said, his face appearing on my screen. He was handsome in that quiet, understated way. Sharp jawline, thoughtful eyes, a slight smile that suggested he knew more than he said. "I've heard excellent things about you. Please, call me Naledi. And I've heard you're the one who actually runs this division while everyone else takes credit." He laughed, surprised. "Did Robert tell you that?" "No. I did my research. You've increased regional revenue by 43% in 2 years, negotiated partnerships in 12 countries, and somehow convinced the Tokyo office to actually collaborate with Seoul. That last one might be your greatest achievement. You really did do your research. I don't walk into situations blind, Mr. Choi. Se-hoon, please." He leaned back in his chair, studying me through the camera. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why did you request the announcement be delayed until the gala?" "Robert mentioned it was personal, but I'm curious. That's not a typical move." I hesitated. We barely knew each other, but something about his directness made me want to be honest. "I'm getting divorced," I said simply. "My husband works at Meridian. He doesn't know yet. The papers will be finalized the day of the gala." Se-hoon's expression shifted, not to pity, but to understanding. "And you want him to find out publicly?" "I want him to understand exactly what he threw away. May I say something that might be inappropriate for a first business call?" "Go ahead." "He's an idiot. Anyone who didn't see your worth deserves exactly what's coming to him." I felt my chest tighten, unexpectedly. It had been so long since anyone had simply believed in me, seen me, not the version of myself I'd shrunk down to fit into Yiho's insecurity, but the real me. "Thank you," I whispered. No thanks needed. It's just the truth. Now, should we actually talk about quarterly projections? Or would you rather tell me your plan for maximum dramatic impact at the gala? I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. Both. Definitely both. Over the next month, Sahun and I talked almost every day. Officially, we were coordinating my transition into the COO role. Unofficially, he became my friend, my confidant, the person who reminded me that not all men were like Yiho. He told me about his divorce 3 years earlier, how his ex-wife had decided she didn't want to be married to someone who worked too much, even though her lifestyle depended on that work. How she'd gotten full custody of their daughter Bora, only to realize motherhood was harder than she'd anticipated. Now I have Bora most of the time, he said during one late-night call. Her mother sees her twice a month, if that. But Bora doesn't seem to mind. She says I make better pancakes anyway. How old is she? 6, smart as a whip and twice as fierce. She keeps asking when she can meet the pretty lady from Africa that Appa keeps smiling about. My heart stuttered. You told her about me. I told her I was working with someone very impressive. She inferred the rest. 6-year-olds are terrifyingly perceptive. And am I? The reason you keep smiling? The line went quiet for a moment. When Sehun spoke again, his voice was softer. Yes, you are. Is that okay? It's more than okay. Good, because I'd like to take you to dinner after the gala, after everything settles. If you're interested. I'm very interested. Fair warning, Bora will probably demand to come along. She doesn't trust my judgment in important matters. I smiled into the darkness of my home, office, where I'd taken to having these calls. I think I'd like to meet Bora very much. She's going to love you almost as much as... He stopped himself. As much as what? As much as I'm starting to. Is it too soon to say that? My breath caught. We haven't even met in person yet. I know, that's why I said starting to. But Naledi, I've talked to you almost every day for a month. I've seen how brilliant you are, how kind, how strong, how you're handling an impossible situation with grace instead of bitterness. So yes, I'm starting to fall for you, and I wanted you to know. No pressure, no expectations, just honesty. I closed my eyes, letting his words wash over me. After years of Yiho making me feel invisible, here was someone who saw me so clearly it almost hurt. I'm starting to fall for you too, I admitted. It terrifies me. Good. The best things usually do. Drop a like if you're rooting for Naledi and Sehun. Let me know in the comments who you think the real catch is here. Meanwhile, Yiho was spiraling in ways he didn't realize I could see. He'd started coming home later and later, sometimes not until 2 or 3 a.m. He'd stopped even pretending to hide the affair. I found more receipts, more messages, more evidence of a man who thought he'd already won. I'm going to Jeju next weekend, he announced one morning over coffee. Client meeting. On a weekend? Important client. You understand. I understood perfectly. Park Minha had posted on her private Instagram, the one she didn't know I'd found, about a romantic weekend getaway with her future husband. Of course, I said, I'll be fine here. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something flicker in his eyes. Guilt? Doubt? It was gone too quickly to tell. Naledi, are you happy? The question stunned me. What? Are you happy? With us? With your life? I could have told him the truth. Could have confronted him right there, ended it. Without the spectacle I'd planned. But I'd come too far. I'm content, I said carefully. Why do you ask? You've seemed different lately. Distant. The irony was almost funny. He'd been cheating on me for months, stealing from me, planning to leave me, and he thought I was the one being distant. I've just been focused on work, I lied. You know how it is. Relief flooded his face. Right. Work. Yeah. Me too, actually. Things are really picking up at Meridian. I think I might be in line for a promotion. That's wonderful. Senior Vice President, maybe even Executive VP if things go well. The gala next month is huge. All the executives will be there. I need to make a good impression. I'm sure you will. He smiled, kissed the top of my head like I was a child, and left for work. I waited until his car pulled out of the driveway. Then I called attorney Kim. The gala is in 3 weeks, I said. Can we expedite the divorce hearing? Already on it. The judge is a friend. She's agreed to fast-track it. We'll have the final decree the day of the gala, just as you wanted. Perfect. Naledi, are you absolutely certain about the public nature of this? Once you do this, there's no going back. I'm certain. He humiliated me in private for months. Turnabout is fair play. All right then, let's make it memorable. The day before the gala, Yiho came home with an unusual request. About tomorrow night, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. I was thinking maybe you should dress simply. Nothing too flashy. I looked up from my laptop. Excuse me? It's just, there will be a lot of important people there. Senior executives, potential clients. I don't want to seem, like I'm showing off. You don't want me to look nice? I want you to look appropriate, professional. Like, he struggled for the right word. Like what, Yiho? Like you're there to support me, not outshine me. There it was. The truth he'd been dancing around for years. He didn't want a partner. He wanted an accessory. Something pretty but not too pretty. Smart but not too smart. Successful but never more successful than him. I'll wear something simple, I promised. He looked relieved. Thank you. And maybe, if people ask who you are, just keep it vague. Say you're my wife, but don't go into detail about your work. Some of these guys are old-fashioned about women in business. You want me to hide my career? I want us both to make a good impression. This is important for our future, Naledi. Our future. The one he'd already decided didn't include me. Whatever you think is best, I said. He kissed my forehead. You're the best wife a man could ask for. I don't tell you that enough. After he left the room, I pulled out my phone and texted Sehun. He just asked me to dress down and hide my career at the gala tomorrow. 3 dots appeared immediately, then, what an absolute fool. Wear whatever makes you feel powerful. I'll be the one in the back trying not to applaud too loudly when you destroy him. I smiled. See you tomorrow. Can't wait. Bora made me promise to get your autograph. Apparently, you're her new hero. She doesn't even know me. I showed her your photo and told her you were the smartest person I'd ever met. She said, and I quote, "She looks like a queen upper. You should marry her." 6-year-olds don't mince words. My heart clenched. What did you tell her? That I was working on it? Too presumptuous? Not even a little bit. Good, because after tomorrow, after you've shown your husband exactly what he lost, I'd really like to show you what you could have. If you're willing. I'm willing. Then it's a date. Right after you finish breaking the internet with what I'm certain will be the most legendary gala appearance in corporate history. I laughed, but there were tears on my cheeks. Happy tears, hopeful tears, the kind I'd forgotten I could cry. That night, I pulled out the black dress one more time. Simple, elegant, understated. Exactly what Yiho had requested. But I also pulled out my other outfit, the one I'd packed in a separate bag, the one I'd wear after the reveal, after the divorce was announced, after everything changed. It was a deep emerald green, the color of my father's homeland, of new growth, of beginnings. It was stunning, bold, unapologetically beautiful. I'd wear the black dress for Yiho, to play his game one last time, but I'd change into the green dress for me, for the woman I was about to become. I laid both dresses on my bed and took a photo, sending it to my father. Tomorrow, Papa. Tomorrow I take my life back. His response came immediately. That's my daughter. Show them what Okoro women are made of. I'm proud of you. Asterisk. I fell asleep that night with my phone clutched to my chest, dreaming of green dresses and new beginnings and a man whose daughter thought I looked like a queen. And when I woke up, it was the day everything changed. The morning of the gala arrived with clear skies and brutal clarity. I woke before Yiho, showered, and prepared myself with the precision of a general before battle. Every detail mattered. Every moment counted. At 3 p.m., my phone buzzed with a message from Attorney Kim. Judge signed off. Divorce finalized as of 4 p.m. today. Papers ready for service. I'll have the process server at the venue by 8 p.m. Are you ready? I typed back. I've never been more ready for anything in my life. At 4:17 p.m., the official notification came through. Your marriage to Kang Yiho has been legally dissolved. All assets distributed according to prenuptial agreement. Fraud investigation forwarded to appropriate authorities. I stared at that message for a long time. 5 years of marriage ended with a text message and a court stamp. But I didn't feel sad. I felt free. Yiho came home at 5:30, already dressed in his best suit, buzzing with nervous energy. Tonight's the night, he said, checking his reflection obsessively. Everything has to be perfect. It will be, I assured him. He turned to me. You look nice. Simple. Good. I was wearing the black dress, my hair pulled back, minimal jewelry, exactly what he'd asked for. Thank you. Ready to go? I picked up my clutch, the one containing the divorce decree, just in case, and smiled. I've never been more ready. The Schiller Hotel ballroom was exactly as magnificent as I'd imagined. Crystal chandeliers caught the light like captured stars. A string quartet played softly in the corner. Seoul's corporate elite moved through the space in designer suits and cocktail dresses, their laughter polished and their ambitions sharper than the champagne flutes they carried. Yiho's hand was tight on my elbow as we entered. Not protective, possessive. Remember, he whispered. Just smile and stay quiet. Let me do the talking. Of course. We'd barely made it 3 steps into the room when his colleague, Director Huang, approached with his wife. Yiho, good to see you. They shook hands enthusiastically. Director Huang turned to me with a polite smile. And who is this? I opened my mouth to introduce myself, but Yiho cut in smoothly. This is Naledi. She helps manage our household. Couldn't have made it here without her keeping everything running at home. The words hit like a slap. Not his wife, not his partner, his house manager. Mrs. Huang's smile turned pitying. How nice. It's so hard to find good help these days. Isn't it? Yiho agreed, already moving his attention back to the director. Sir, I wanted to discuss the Singapore account. I have some ideas. I stood there, invisible, while my husband networked over my head. Across the room, I caught a pair of eyes watching me. Sehun. He was standing with a group of executives, but his attention was entirely on me. Even from a distance, I could see the barely controlled anger in his expression. I gave him a small shake of my head. Not yet. He understood immediately, turned back to his conversation, but his jaw was tight. The next hour was a masterclass in humiliation. Yiho introduced me to 7 different people. Not once did he call me his wife. House manager. Domestic help. Once, horrifyingly, just she helps out at home. I smiled through all of it, played the part, let him think he'd won. And then I saw her, Park Min-ha. She was wearing red, of course she was, and hanging off the arm of some junior executive, laughing too loudly. When she spotted Yiho, her face lit up. She excused herself and made her way over. Mr. Kang, she said professionally, but her eyes were warm, intimate. So good to see you here. Director Park. Yiho's voice dropped to something softer. You look stunning. You're too kind. Her gaze slid to me, dismissive. And who's this? The moment stretched. I waited to see what Yiho would say. Wondered if he'd have even an ounce of decency left. My house manager, he said. Just here for the evening. Park Min-ha's smile turned sharp. How lovely. It's so important to have good staff, isn't it? Essential, Yiho agreed. They stood there, my husband and his mistress, discussing me like I was furniture, like I couldn't understand every word, like I didn't matter. "If you'll excuse me," I said quietly, "I need to use the restroom." Neither of them acknowledged me. They were already deep in conversation, standing too close, their body language screaming everything I needed to know. I walked away with my head high and my hands steady. The bathroom was empty, thank God. I stood at the marble sink, breathing slowly, staring at my reflection. 2 more hours, I whispered. "You can do this for 2 more hours." The door opened behind me. I didn't turn, just kept fixing my lipstick until I heard a familiar voice. "Can't believe how perfect tonight is going. He's finally ready to leave her." Park Minha, on the phone. She hadn't seen me standing partially hidden by the partition. "Yes, Mother, the divorce will be finalized soon. He's just waiting for the right moment. And then we're going to Jeju this weekend to celebrate." Her voice was giddy, victorious. I know, and the best part? She has no idea. He said she's completely clueless, just sits at home all day while he builds his career. I stepped out from behind the partition. Park Minha's face went white. Her phone nearly slipped from her hand. "I have to go," she stammered into the phone and hung up. We stood there, facing each other across the pristine bathroom. I should have felt angry, betrayed, broken. Instead, I felt nothing but cold, clear certainty. "You must be Park Minha," I said calmly. "The HR director." Yes. And you're Kang Yeho's wife. Soon-to-be ex-wife, actually. The divorce was finalized about 3 hours ago." Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. "That's not... He didn't mention it?" "No, I imagine he wouldn't. Just like he didn't mention the 250 million one he stole from our joint account to transfer to yours. Or the corporate fraud you've both been committing with false expense reports." All colour drained from her face. "How do you... know?" "Because unlike what my dear husband believes, I'm not stupid, I'm thorough and patient and very, very good at my job." "What job? You're just what? A house manager?" I smiled, and it wasn't kind. "You'll find out soon enough. But here's some free advice. When you commit fraud, make sure the company you're stealing from isn't about to hire someone specifically to audit that division. Someone who's very motivated to find every single irregularity." I walked past her toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and Park Minha? Check your work email. I believe HR has some questions for you." Well, the real HR, not the corrupt director who's been enabling all of this. I left her standing there, shaking, and walked back into the ballroom. The energy had shifted. People were starting to gather near the main stage. The CEO's address was about to begin. Yeho found me immediately. "Where were you? I've been looking everywhere." "Bathroom." "Well, you missed meeting the executive VP, but that's fine. The CEO's about to speak. This is it, Naledi. This is my moment." He was practically vibrating with excitement, already imagining his name being called, his achievements being recognized. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Robert Whitmore took the stage, commanding immediate attention. The room fell silent. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Meridian's annual gala." His British accent carried perfectly through the space. "Tonight, we celebrate not just our achievements, but the remarkable individuals who make them possible." Yeho straightened beside me, smoothing his tie. "Our expansion into the Asia-Pacific market has been our most ambitious project to date," Whitmore continued. "We needed someone extraordinary to lead it, someone with impeccable credentials, cross-cultural expertise, and unwavering integrity." I started walking toward the stage. Yeho grabbed my arm. "Where are you going?" "Just wait," I said softly, pulling free. "Ladies and gentlemen," Whitmore's voice rang out, "please join me in welcoming our new Chief Operations Officer for Asia Pacific, Naledi Okoro." The room erupted in applause. I walked onto that stage with my head high, my shoulders back, every inch of me radiating the power I'd been hiding for years. Behind me, I heard Yiho make a strangled sound. The faces in the crowd were a mixture of shock, confusion, and, in Sehun's case, barely contained pride. He was clapping harder than anyone, a huge smile on his face. I took the microphone from Robert. The room quieted. Thank you, Mr. Whitmore. Thank you all for this incredible welcome. I paused, gathering my thoughts. Then I switched to Korean, and the surprise rippled through the crowd again. 저는 여러분과 함께 일하게 되어 영광입니다. 저는 제 역할을 매우 진지하게 받아들입니다. I heard gasps, saw Yiho's colleague lean over and whisper urgently, "She speaks Korean?" Back to English. Tonight is meaningful for many reasons. I accept this role with immense gratitude, but also with a sense of closure. The room was dead silent now. I've learned recently that growth requires releasing what no longer serves us. Dead weight, dishonesty, disrespect. My eyes found Yiho in the crowd. He was frozen, pale, gripping the back of a chair like it was the only thing keeping him upright. For too long, I made myself smaller to make someone else feel bigger. I hid my achievements. I downplayed my success. I let myself be introduced as help by someone who should have been proud to call me his equal. If you're on the edge of your seat right now, drop a comment. Let me know. Team Naledi all the way. But tonight, that ends. Tonight, I choose myself. Tonight, I choose my future. I looked at Robert. Before we continue, I believe I have a personal announcement to make. He nodded, stepping back. As of 4 p.m. today, my marriage to Kang Yiho was legally dissolved. The room exploded in whispers. A man in a server's uniform stepped forward from the side of the room. Not a server at all, but the process server Attorney Kim had arranged. He walked directly to Yiho, who stood paralyzed, and handed him an envelope. Mr. Kang Yiho, you've been served with final divorce decree and asset recovery documents. Yiho's hands shook as he took the papers. Around him, people were staring, whispering, phones coming out to record this moment. I continued speaking, my voice steady and clear. Our prenuptial agreement was explicit. What I brought to the marriage remained mine. That includes my inheritance, my investments, and most relevantly, the 250 million won that was transferred without my authorization from our joint account to a third party. Park Min-ha, who'd been trying to slip toward the exit, stopped dead. That money has been traced and frozen. Legal proceedings for recovery are underway. I looked directly at her now. I'd also like to announce that Meridian's Internal Audit Division will be conducting a thorough review of expense reports and HR practices over the past 18 months. Anyone who's been participating in fraudulent activities might want to consult with legal counsel. Park Min-ha turned and ran. Actually ran out of the ballroom, heels clicking frantically on marble. Security didn't stop her. Why would they? She couldn't run far enough. I turned my attention back to the stunned crowd. I share this not for revenge, though I won't pretend it doesn't feel satisfying. I share this because I want every person in this room, especially every woman, to know that you are not required to shrink yourself for anyone's comfort. Your success is not a threat. Your intelligence is not a burden, and anyone who asks you to hide your light doesn't deserve to stand in it. The applause started slowly, then built to a roar. People were standing. Mrs. Huang, who'd pitied me earlier, had tears streaming down her face as she clapped. Director Huang looked ashamed. And Sehun. Sehun was looking at me like I hung the moon. But Yiho looked destroyed. His face was ashen, his hands still clutching those papers, surrounded by colleagues who were now staring at him with contempt instead of respect. I'll be relocating to Seoul permanently to focus on this new role, I concluded. I look forward to working with all of you to build something extraordinary. Thank you. I handed the microphone back to Robert, who gripped my hand briefly. That, he murmured, was magnificent. I walked off the stage and immediately someone grabbed my elbow. Yiho. Naledi, wait, we need to talk. This is insane. You can't just... I can't what? I I turned to face him fully. Divorce a husband who cheated on me, who stole from me, who introduced me as his maid to his colleagues? Please tell me what I can't do. This is humiliating. Yes, I agreed calmly. It is. Now you know how I felt every single time you made me feel invisible, every time you asked me to hide who I was, every time you chose her over me. I was going to end it with her. I just needed time. You stole 250 million from me to give to your mistress, and you expect me to believe you were going to end it? People were gathering around us now, a loose circle of witnesses. Yi-ho seemed to realize we had an audience and lowered his voice. Please, can we talk about this privately? No. You humiliated me publicly. I'm returning the favor. I never meant... Yes, you did. You meant every word, every dismissal, every introduction where you erased me. You meant all of it because it made you feel important, because my success threatened your fragile ego. His mother appeared then, pushing through the crowd. Mrs. Kang, dressed in expensive hanbok, her face twisted with fury. You ungrateful girl. My son gave you everything. A home, a life, respectability. Your son, I cut her off in Korean, gave me nothing I didn't already have. I bought our apartment. I paid for the renovations. My inheritance funded the lifestyle you enjoyed bragging about at your church meetings. She reared back like I'd slapped her. I stayed silent because I loved your son, because I believed marriage meant partnership. But he didn't want a partner. He wanted a servant who could smile prettily at parties. I looked at Yi-ho again. I hope she was worth it. I hope every moment of your affair was worth losing everything. You're not taking everything, he said desperately. The lawyers said. The prenup was ironclad. My attorney made sure of that. And the money you stole? That's fraud, Yi-ho. The criminal kind. You'll be lucky if you're not prosecuted. I turned to walk away, done with this conversation, done with him. You'll never find anyone better than me, he shouted after me. You're too difficult, too ambitious. You're 31 and starting over. Who's going to want you now? I stopped, turned back one last time. Someone who deserves me. And then Sehun was there, stepping into the space between Yi-ho and me. His presence was quiet, but absolute. I believe Ms. Okoro asked you to leave her alone, Sehun said calmly. Perhaps you should respect that. Yi-ho looked between us, something ugly dawning on his face. You've got to be kidding me. You and him? How long has this been? Nothing happened while we were married, I said firmly. But what happens now is none of your concern. We're divorced, Yi-ho. You don't get an opinion on my life anymore. Security appeared then, finally summoned by Robert. Mr. Kang, the head of security said politely, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises. You're causing a disturbance. Yi-ho looked around wildly, seeing nothing but condemning faces. Even his mother was being escorted out by her friends, her head bowed in shame. This isn't over, he said weakly. Yes, I replied. It is. They escorted him out. Through the massive glass doors. Out of the ballroom. Out of my life. I stood there, shaking slightly as the adrenaline started to fade. Sehun's hand found mine, warm and steady. Are you okay? I think so. Is it always this exhausting to take your life back? Probably. But you did it with style. I laughed, slightly hysterical. Did I really just do that? Did I really just blow up my entire life in front of 300 people? You didn't blow up your life. You saved it. His thumb traced circles on my palm. Come on, let's get some air. He guided me out to a private terrace, away from the crowd. The Seoul skyline glittered before us, impossibly beautiful. So, Sehun said after a moment, that was quite a speech. Too much? Perfect. Though I have to admit, when you said you were relocating to Seoul permanently, my heart jumped. Did it? Naledi. He turned to face me fully, taking both my hands. I know tonight was about you reclaiming your power. I know you need time to process everything. But I meant what I said before. I'm falling for you, have been since our first video call. And now that I've seen you like this, confident, fierce, absolutely unstoppable, I'm completely gone. My breath caught. Sehun, you don't have to say anything back. Not tonight. Tonight is yours. But when you're ready, when you've had time to heal and breathe and figure out who you are outside of that marriage, I'd really like to take you to dinner. Properly. With Bora, because she's already planning what dress to wear to meet you. Tears spilled down my cheeks before I could stop them. But they weren't sad tears. I'd love that, I whispered. All of it. With you and Bora. His smile could have lit the entire city. Yeah? Yeah. He pulled me into a hug then, careful and respectful, letting me cry against his shoulder while the weight of the evening finally hit me. You're going to be okay, he murmured into my hair. Better than okay. You're going to be extraordinary. I already am, I said, and meant it. We stood there for a long time, just breathing together until my phone buzzed in my clutch. A text from my father. That's my daughter. The whole world just saw what I've always known. You're unstoppable. Come home to Lagos next month. We'll celebrate properly. And another from attorney Kim. That was the most spectacular divorce reveal I've seen in 30 years. Brava. Also, Yiho's employer is requesting all documentation for their internal investigation. He's finished. And one more, from a number I didn't recognize. This is Robert Whitmore's assistant. Mr. Whitmore wanted me to inform you that your performance tonight has been noted and appreciated. Also, he's increased your signing bonus. Welcome to Meridian. Asterisk, I showed Sehun the messages. He laughed, bright and genuine. So, how does it feel to have everything you deserve? I thought about it. Really thought about it. 6 months ago, I'd been invisible, dismissed, making myself smaller every day. Now I stood on a terrace in Seoul with a career that matched my ambitions, freedom from a man who'd never valued me, and someone new who saw me as I truly was. It feels like finally breathing, I said. 3 months later. The Lagos sun was warm on my face as I stood in my father's garden, surrounded by family and friends. Music played, children laughed. My mother's jollof rice perfumed the air. Sehun stood beside me, slightly overwhelmed, but trying his best. Bora was running around with my nieces and nephews, teaching them Korean songs in exchange for learning Igbo ones. Your family is amazing, Sehun said. They're a lot. It's okay to be scared. I'm not scared. I'm grateful that you brought me here, that you let me into this part of your life. Bora ran up then, tugging on my dress. Naledi, I told everyone you're my uppa's girlfriend and they said you're too pretty for him, I laughed. Your uppa is very handsome. I know, but you're like movie star pretty. Right, uppa? Sehun looked at me, his expression soft and open and completely in love. Like a queen, he said quietly. My phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, but the name on the screen caught my attention. Yiho. I hadn't heard from him since the gala, hadn't blocked him either. Just let him sit in silence with what he'd lost. The message was long. Paragraphs of apologies, explanations, justifications, saying he'd lost his job, his reputation, Park Min-ha had left him the moment things fell apart. Saying he'd been to therapy, realised his mistakes, wanted another chance. I read it once, then deleted it without responding. Everything okay? Sehun asked. Everything is perfect. I meant it. Because I'd learned something important through all of this. Revenge wasn't about making someone else hurt. It was about choosing yourself so completely that their opinions stopped mattering. Yiho could apologize forever. It wouldn't change anything. I'd already moved on to a better job, a better city, a better life. And maybe, if we kept taking things slow and steady, to a better love. Bora grabbed both our hands, pulling us toward where my father was telling stories. Sehun went willingly, laughing, fitting into my world like he'd always belonged there. And as I walked through that garden, surrounded by love and laughter and new beginnings, I realised something. I didn't need Yeho to regret what he'd lost. I just needed to remember what I'd gained. And that was everything. Drop a comment and let me know what you think. Should I make more stories like this? Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an upload. Hit that like button if Naledi's journey inspired you. Thank you for watching.